Ahoy! Weapon mastery is one of the more grindy things in New World Aeternum, so if you want to max out multiple weapons, that can take quite a while. Maybe you are aiming to level your particular weapon, or maybe you're just a little bit indecisive. Either way, this is going to help you level your weapon as efficiently as possible. Because there are different hotspots, some of them have existed for a while, but they're not always equally efficient, and there isn't a general answer as for which one is always the best. I did some testing at those different hotspots, and I want to show you some of them. So the first spot is one that many veterans will be familiar with. In Great Cleave, if we zoom in here, near the Battle-Classed Shrine, you have this area called Battle-Classed Crossing, and here we have a repeating event where you are fighting some waves, and then you're fighting Thorpe, which will give you a significant amount of XP after defeating Thorpe. In Brightwood, we have one of the few remaining elite zones, which used to be all the rage for weapon mastery farming, and that is Brightwood Isle, which has level 35 mobs. The closest fast travel shrine is one that you unlock during the story anyways, post-Rekin Shrine. The third location is a little bit higher level, and it's in Brimstone Sands. Here you want to go to the Acropolis. This is pretty close to the entrance of the zone, but you want to be at least close to level 60. The fourth thing we're putting into comparison are influence races. Unfortunately right now there is none on the map to show you, but it will show similar to an upcoming war as an upcoming race under a territory. There are other spots, such as for example the repeating elite spawn in Eden Grove. There's an area where you kind of cycle through various mobs consistently, but I wanted to focus on the ones that you can do solo if you want to. Let's begin with the Battle-Class Crossing in Great Cleave, more commonly referred to as the Thorpe weapon farm. In a vacuum, this is an extremely efficient farm, but there is a problem with it, and that's a problem that all other spots share, but is especially notable here. So Baggins suggested this farm in a video recently and said that the farm provides 3,300 weapon XP. This is possibly still true, I am not sure because I can't test under the conditions that he was testing. However, if it is true, then it only applies as long as there's only one person there. When I went there and I killed Thorpe for the first time, I got 742 weapon XP. However, by the next attempt there was an extra person there and I only got 577 weapon XP. So depending on how many other players are hitting him, you get less weapon XP. Even later when I went back to verify that, the whole area was crowded with people farming and I actually only got 200 something weapon XP, at which point it was barely worth it. Of course, you clear the waves in between quicker, but still the XP ratio goes down quite dramatically. But I wanted a more exact answer, so I added up all the XP values I was getting from mobs during the waves, and then the value from Thorpe at the end, for a total of 955 XP in roughly 3 minutes and 30 seconds. That results in 273 XP per minute, if there are only a few people around. Things look a little bit different in Brightwood. Before I tell you more about that, consider subscribing and clicking the bell if you enjoyed the video, and if you want to get more advanced trading tips for the expansion, then consider supporting me on Patreon. So in Brightwood, my weapon XP per minute was a lot more inconsistent. In some minutes I got 90 weapon XP, in others I got 186. That just depended on how many mobs spawned, how many I was able to kill quickly, and so on. This is definitely a farm that gets more efficient once you're at a higher level, but it has limitations because there are only so many mobs on that island and they take a while to respawn. Some are also relatively annoying and slow to kill due to their block attack. All in all, that results in 124.5 weapon XP per minute, which is less than half of what we had at Thorpe. But keep in mind, this is not on max level, and this can also change depending on how contested Brightwood Isle is and how contested Thorpe is. So it is still a valid alternative. What is also worth keeping in mind here is that you may be more likely to switch between weapons to actually kill the mobs, which is not really something you need to do with Thorpe as much. So you may be leveling multiple weapons at once, and that can slow down the one weapon that you want to level if you just focus on one specific weapon. There are also some nice resources around Brightwood Isle, which is worth keeping in mind. They're going to be less contested, so for example some iron ore. The Manticore spot at the Acropolis is pretty interesting. When I was there, there weren't many other people there. For most of the time it was just one other person, and the XP here was inconsistent as well compared to Thorpe, for example, but it was pretty high values for most of the attempts. Sometimes the lowest value here was 65 XP, but at other points it was 299 weapon XP. The average after 6 attempts was 160 weapon XP, so more than Brightwood Isle, not something that I expected here. To some extent, this farm may actually get better with more people around, because it drastically increases the spawn rate here, since these are quest-related mobs and those always have that spawn rate booster in Brimstone Sands. But again, I'm sure there is a cutoff point here somewhere where the efficiency gets lower due to the XP being shared between too many people. Since these are higher level mobs, you need to pay more attention to which weapon you're on when you're killing the mob, since you may be switching back and forth more. Our fourth contender here are Influence Races. I used a booster during these, so I needed to halve the values, but still, we had a very clear picture here. Depending on the minute, I made between 209 and 721 weapon XP in the first minutes of an Influence race. That makes for an average of 380 XP, weapon XP per minute. Significantly more than any other option despite being with a lot more other people. The weapon XP that you can get from open world PvP, especially if players have been flagged for a while, is pretty insane, and this really shows in Influence races when you have a lot of people clashing in open world that may have been flagged for a while. And especially if you're trying to level a ranged weapon, it is super low effort. You can see me throwing abilities just vaguely in the direction of the enemies because I was testing stuff with target lock. So I wasn't really putting in any effort at all, I wasn't getting many tags, and still, because I was part of a raid group, I got an absolute truckload of weapon XP. But that's crucial here. This only works as long as you have enough allies around to have a raid group that you can be a part of, and as long as there are enough enemies around that haven't been killed all too recently. That's why the first couple minutes of an Influence race are typically best for this, because eventually most players will have killed each other and you will get significantly less weapon XP. At that point it can be worth going to another point and trying again there, but that also results in you potentially not being with your raid group, so you may need to find another group there, so it kind of slows down. And if your faction just didn't happen to show up for that particular race, then you're basically getting nothing. So while you can absolutely get the highest values here, they are also the most conditional ones. So if you're planning to, for example, throw a weapon XP booster for an Influence race, then I would recommend doing that right away at the start, having a group, trying to get as much XP as you can in a few minutes, maybe check out another point, maybe if that's worth it, you can see if you can get another control point and see if there are more enemies there. And if none of that's working anymore, then head over to another spot outside of the Influence race, a PvE spot, and continue using your booster there to get the maximum out of your weapon XP. Another nice way to farm weapon XP are any kinds of chest runs where the mobs are getting cleared. Again, the values here are extremely inconsistent depending on how many mobs the group clears and where exactly you go, but this can definitely be a decent way to get a lot of weapon XP without actually doing anything in that regard. Likewise, if you're sitting at any farm spot for a specific item, once you're at a higher level, that's also a very nice place to get weapon mastery. For example, the aforementioned spot in Eden Grove, it's called Torriven, where Malevolent spawns. People farm Life Ring there, so in chat you will often see Life Ring farm, and you can just go there and get into a party, equip a weapon that you want to level, and you get some nice loot, and maybe some weapon mastery along the way. So if you're planning to farm certain gear at a certain point anyways, then might as well combine the two. Also keep in mind that New World has recently introduced a feature that allows you to level your offhand without actually using it, so you can use your main weapon and equip an offhand that will still get some XP throughout whatever other activities you are doing. It's not a massive amount, but it's enough to slowly level an additional weapon. If you found this breakdown helpful, consider subscribing and clicking the bell. Thanks to my patrons for supporting this video, and thank you for watching. Sloth, out.